I've always moved fast, not running from problems, running toward purpose, running toward what I could create. Every street, every step, every breath, a test. Not of who I was, but of what I was building with the life I had. See, people always think when a man runs, he's escaping something, but sometimes you're not escaping, you're evolving, you're moving through dimensions people can't even see yet. Like your body's here, but your mind's already designing something 5 steps ahead. When I used to run, it wasn't about fear, it was rhythm, it was code. The sound of trainers hitting pavement was like data uploading. Every heartbeat was a download, every fence I jumped was a firewall I broke through, and every time I landed, I was back in the system, rewriting my own program. I learned early that motion is survival. Stillness will trap you. They'll study you, label you, box you up in systems they designed to keep you still. So me, I kept it moving. Physically, mentally, spiritually. When I say I was running, I don't mean sprinting through streets. I mean sprinting through setbacks, running through doubt, running through every "you can't do that" they ever threw at me. And that's the thing about being misunderstood. The people don't see your strategy when it's still forming. They call it chaos, but it's creation. I remember those nights. Hoodie up, city lights bouncing off wet concrete, sirens somewhere behind me. But the sirens were never chasing me. They were chasing the idea of me, the version they wrote down on paper, not the one I was becoming. Sometimes I think about that, how I was moving towards something nobody else could name yet. The blueprint wasn't public, the download wasn't finished, but I knew the design. I could feel it building inside me step by step. And now, when I look back, I realize that every run was a chapter, every night was a lesson. Every time I moved faster than they expected, it wasn't rebellion, it was instinct. Because when you've lived through systems that study you more than they support you, you learn to stay unpredictable. You learn to move in alien ways, untraceable, uncopyable, unstoppable. So yeah, I still move fast, not because I'm running away, but because the world moves slow. And when you're building something they've never seen before, you don't walk. You run, you glide, you disappear into the future, and you let them catch up later. Because some of us, we weren't made to fit in, we were made to move through. And that's exactly what I've been doing. One step, one idea, 100,000 moves at a time. I built sliders because I needed to put use to everything I'd invested in before the world pressed pause on me, before the court dates, before the sales, before the noise. I had equipment collecting dust, 3D printers, designs, materials, all this potential just sitting still. And I thought, I can't let that energy die. If I can't move physically, I'll move creatively. That's when I built my space, the maker's space. See, people talk about getting back on your feet. Me, I never left mine. Even locked in, my mind was still in motion, still designing, still testing, still thinking, how do I make something out of all this chaos? When I started printing the first 100 logo, I wasn't just making a product, I was making proof that I could still build something from broken pieces, proof that I could take what tried to bury me and turn it into something that walks. Sliders, hoodies, art, it didn't matter what form it came in. All that mattered was that I was creating movement again. Because when you've been forced to defend yourself your whole life, first as a kid, then as a man, your art becomes your freedom papers. It becomes your way of saying, I'm still here and I'm still building. That's what 100 stands for. Persistence, survival, never being afraid to start from scratch again and again and again. And I'll be real, it wasn't just about fashion, it was therapy. I was tired of explaining what I was going through to people who couldn't understand it. Tired of having to decode my pain into words that never landed right. So I said, forget the words, let me show you. Let me paint it, print it, wear it. Let me let the art talk for me. When you see a pair of sliders with 100 stamped on them, you're not just seeing rubber and paint. You're seeing chapters, you're seeing courtrooms, conversations, nights staring at the ceiling thinking, how did I end up here again? You're seeing the frustration of being unheard, flipped into design. I didn't want pity, I wanted progress. And progress for me meant taking the same energy I used to defend myself and using it to define myself. There's a difference. Defending keeps you stuck, defining keeps you moving. Now, when I walk into my maker space, it's peace, it's quiet, machines humming like meditation. Each print layer feels like healing. Each hoodie stitched feels like rebuilding. I'm not just making products, I'm making peace with my past. So yeah, I built sliders, but really, I was building me. Every prototype was a promise that no matter what they take, I'll still find a way to create, because the maker never stops making, even when the world tries to stop him. You know, I always believed if you can see the future, it's your job to teach it, even if nobody's ready to hear it yet. That's why I started showing my kids about crypto, about AI, about digital money before it became TikTok knowledge. Because I wanted them to understand the system, not just exist inside it. I remember sitting at the table with them, showing them Go Henry cards, little apps, the coins, the charts. I'd say, this is how money's moving now. This is what they won't teach you in school. And the kids got it. They were curious. They saw me not as a teacher, but like a coder showing them how to build their own cheat codes for life. But then the misunderstanding started. Their mum saw it differently. She thought I was trying to brainwash them, like I was programming robots instead of raising thinkers. But that's what happens when your mind's a few downloads ahead of the people around you. They think your updates are errors. They think your vision's a virus. See, when I talked about crypto, I wasn't talking about money, I was talking about independence. When I showed them about AI, it wasn't about robots, it was about reality. It was about preparing them for a world where information moves faster than truth. And I can't lie, it hurt to be misunderstood, because all I ever wanted was for my kids to think differently. Not better, not smarter, just differently. To look at systems and say, wait, who built this and who's benefiting? That's real education. But instead of being seen as a mentor, I was labeled a manipulator. Instead of being praised for foresight, I was judged for being too forward. And that's when I realized sometimes people don't hate what you're doing. They hate that you're doing it first, that you're doing it confidently, that you're doing it without asking permission. The irony? Everything I was trying to teach my kids, like resilience, innovation, digital awareness, and those same lessons saved me later. When I was going through the system, I knew how data worked, I knew what paper meant, I knew how to read fine print the way I used to read blockchains. So even when life threw codes at me I didn't understand, I learned how to decrypt them. Now when I talk to my kids, I don't force the lesson, I let life teach it. They're seeing now what I meant then. That knowledge is the real currency. And wisdom is compound interest. So yeah, I was the weird dad talking crypto before it was cool, but that's alright, because I'd rather be misunderstood now than have my kids unprepared later. And that's the thing about foresight. It always looks like madness until the future catches up. They say there are two sides to every story, but when your story's complicated, people only read the headlines, they don't read the chapters, they don't see the footnotes, they don't feel the edits. The truth is, it was never about crypto or cards or kids. It was about control. It was about someone not being able to handle my growth, because when you've been through hell and start building heaven, not everyone claps for that. I was moving on, creating, planning, thinking futuristic, living in beta while everyone else was still in version 1. And some people, they don't like upgrades they didn't install. They get scared when you stop playing small. They get defensive when your peace stops needing their permission. I tried to keep it peaceful. I tried to keep her involved. I wanted my family to grow with me, not away from me. But growth looks like distance when someone doesn't understand it. And that's when things started to twist. Little stories became reports. Reports became rumors. Rumors became cases. And before I knew it, my name was no longer a name and it was a file number. I remember sitting there reading the papers like they were written by someone else, like I was watching a documentary about a man who just happened to look like me. The words didn't match the person, the story didn't match the soul, but that's what happens when perception meets projection. Truth becomes translation. People said maybe he snapped, but no, I adapted. People said maybe he's dangerous, but no, I was determined. They said maybe he's changed, and yeah, I'd evolved. You see, when you start moving different, when you start walking with data precision, emotional discipline, spiritual encryption, the world can't decode you anymore. You look alien, and they don't like what they can't identify, so they call it something else. They call it trouble, they call it defiance, they call it rebellion. But me, I call it reconstruction, I call it reprogramming, I call it becoming something new. They arrested me like they were capturing a glitch, but really I was an update they didn't understand. And when I walked out patched, polished, and powered up. Because pain refines the code and clarity cleans the system. So yeah, I got knocked down, but it wasn't failure that took me out, it was growth that made me a target. And now that I've seen how fast lies spread, I move smarter, I document, I design, I deliver. Because once you've seen your story told wrong, you spend the rest of your life making sure it's told right. And that, right there, that's the real reason I keep creating. Not for fame, not for followers, but for truth. So when they study me later, they won't have to guess what I meant. They'll see it, printed, painted, proven. Most people panic when they hear court. Most people freeze when they see probation. Most people sign papers they don't read. I don't, I never did. Because when you've been through the system since you were young, you learn something most people never do. Systems are just code, and code can be read, and if you can read it, you can survive it. See, they designed it to make you scared, to make you feel like a file, not a person. They give you paperwork in language meant to confuse you, dates meant to trap you, rules meant to break you. But me, I treated it like a hackathon. I treated every line like a line of code. I slowed down, I read, I underlined, I highlighted, not out of rebellion, out of awareness, because awareness is armor and knowledge is leverage. When the judge spoke, I didn't just hear words, I heard conditions. When probation wrote letters, I didn't just see ink, I saw patterns. And When they tried to box me in, I found the doors they didn't mention. Not illegal doors, not shortcuts, just the ones built into the system for people patient enough to find them. I don't sign what I don't agree with. I don't say yes to things I don't understand. And that's why from the outside, it might look like I'm getting away with something. But really, I'm just moving differently. I'm playing chess while they're playing checkers. I'm reading the source code while they're stuck on the splash screen. That's the difference between panic and precision, between being processed and being present, between letting the system happen to you and moving through it like a ghost. I've made mistakes, 100,000 of them, but every mistake taught me a line of code. Every setback gave me a script. So now when I sit at a desk reading a new document, I'm not anxious, I'm calm, I'm decoding. It's not rebellion, it's resilience, it's not arrogance, it's architecture. Because once you learn the system, you stop fearing the system, you start navigating it. People think freedom is just walking out the door, but real freedom starts before that. It starts when you understand the system well enough to not let it break your mind. So yeah, the system tried to trap me, but I learned the map, I learned the language, and now when I move through it, I move silent, like code running in the background, unseen, unstoppable, updating my life one patch at a time. That's the way through, not by fighting every line of code, but by reading it, rewriting it, and walking out upgraded. After everything, the case is the time, the noise, I realised something simple but powerful. Talking about pain doesn't free you from it, creating from it does. I could have sat around explaining myself forever, telling stories to people who already made up their minds. But explanations don't build anything. Art does. Art is the only language they can't twist. So I decided to speak through what I create. Every line I draw, every pair of sliders I print, every hoodie I design, it all carries the same message. I'm still here and I'm still building. At first, I didn't even know what to make. I just knew I had to make something, because creation is motion, and I'm not me when I'm still. So I walked into my little workspace, my lab, my sanctuary, and I started experimenting again. No team, no investors, no blueprint, just me, a few machines, and a mind full of lessons I couldn't forget. I started painting prototypes, printing 3D logos, mixing colour with memory. Every 100 I stamped felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they tried to erase. Each hoodie wasn't just fashion, it was documentation. Each slider wasn't just a product, it was proof of survival. People asked, why sliders? I said, because they move. And that's me, always moving. Even when they tried to stop me, I found a way to slide through, comfortably, silently, smoothly. And the art, it healed me. It slowed down the noise. It gave me control again. When you design something, you decide what stays and what gets erased. You choose the lines, the layers, the look. That's creation. That's therapy with output. But it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who ever felt misunderstood, for everyone who ever got blamed for their evolution, for everyone who ever had to defend their own peace. HTWEAR became a symbol for that, a code for survival, a uniform for the misread, the mistreated, the mislabeled. See, giving back doesn't always mean handing something out. Sometimes it means handing something over. Your story, your lessons, your blueprint, and saying, right here, wear this, feel this, understand this. Every design I drop is a piece of the map, a map for anyone lost in their own system, a reminder that pain can be product, that confusion can be creation, that silence can speak, because when words fail, art never does. So yeah, I give back through art, not because I owe it, but because I own it. The story, the struggle, the comeback, it's all mine now, and I'll keep creating until the world sees what I've seen, until the message is clear, until every design feels like freedom. After everything, the case is the time, the noise, I realised something simple but powerful. Talking about pain doesn't free you from it, creating from it does. I could have sat around explaining myself forever, telling stories to people who already made up their minds. But explanations don't build anything. Art does. Art is the only language they can't twist. So I decided to speak through what I create. Every line I draw, every pair of sliders I print, every hoodie I design, it all carries the same message. I'm still here and I'm still building. At first, I didn't even know what to make. I just knew I had to make something, because creation is motion, and I'm not me when I'm still. So I walked into my little workspace, my lab, my sanctuary, and I started experimenting again. No team, no investors, no blueprint, just me, a few machines, and a mind full of lessons I couldn't forget. I started painting prototypes, printing 3D logos, mixing colour with memory. Every 100 I stamped felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they tried to erase. Each hoodie wasn't just fashion, it was documentation. Each slider wasn't just a product, it was proof of survival. People asked, why sliders? I said, because they move. And that's me, always moving. Even when they tried to stop me, I found a way to slide through. Comfortably, silently, smoothly. And the art, it healed me. It slowed down the noise. It gave me control again. When you design something, you decide what stays and what gets erased. You choose the lines, the layers, the look. That's creation. That's therapy with output. But it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who ever felt misunderstood, for everyone who ever got blamed for their evolution, for everyone who ever had to defend their own peace. HTWEAR became a symbol for that, a code for survival, a uniform for the misread, the mistreated, the mislabeled. See, giving back doesn't always mean handing something out. Sometimes it means handing something over. Your story, your lessons, your blueprint, and saying, right here, wear this, feel this, understand this. Every design I drop is a piece of the map. A map for anyone lost in their own system. A reminder that pain can be product, that confusion can be creation, that silence can speak. Because when words fail, art never does. So yeah, I give back through art, not because I owe it, but because I own it. The story, the struggle, the comeback, it's all mine now. And I'll keep creating until the world sees what I've seen, until the message is clear, until every design feels like freedom. HTWEAR isn't just clothing. HTWEAR isn't just sliders. HTWEAR isn't just logos on hoodies. HTWEAR is everything I've lived. Every fight, every loss, every arrest, every late night designing while the world slept, every lesson learned from systems that tried to break me. When I started documenting my ideas, my life, people didn't understand. They called it weird, they called it obsessive, they called it unnecessary, but I knew better. I knew I was building more than fashion. I was building a map, a signal, a blueprint for anyone who's been misunderstood. HTWEAR started with the sliders, the first way I could take energy that had been trapped, that had been wasted, and turn it into motion. The motion became art, the art became clothing, and the clothing became identity. Every design tells a story, every hoodie, every print, every logo carries my history. The history they tried to erase, the history they tried to rewrite, and every person who wears it becomes part of that story, not just a customer, but a collaborator. See, this isn't about hype, this isn't about trends, this isn't about likes or followers or attention, it's about transformation. It's about taking chaos and turning it into structure, pain into pattern, silence into signal. When I look at a finished hoodie, a pair of sliders, a printed design, I see more than products. I see survival, I see resilience, I see the culmination of every system I navigated, every case I faced, every night I spent alone with my thoughts, designing a way forward. People say, why make clothing from struggle? I say, why not? Because struggle doesn't just break you, it builds you. Because the lessons nobody sees are the lessons that define you. Because when you survive the unseen, you deserve something tangible, something people can touch, something people can feel. And now HTWEAR isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who's ever been underestimated, everyone who's ever been misread, everyone who's ever had to defend themselves and keep moving anyway. HTWEAR is proof that your past doesn't have to define you, proof that systems don't have to trap you, proof that pain can become product, proof that movement, physical, mental, creative, is freedom. So yeah, I built HTWEAR, but really, HTWEAR built me. It taught me to transform, to express, to inspire. It's a signal to the world. You can take everything they try to use against you, all the rules, all the limitations, all the misunderstandings, and turn it into something unstoppable, from courtrooms to workshops, from systems to sliders, from silence to signal. This brand is more than clothing. It's a movement, it's a map, it's a message. And that message is simple. Keep moving, keep building, keep creating, keep surviving. HTWEAR, made from the run, made from the fight, made from every step I ever took, every step I ever will take.